DUI ordinance amendment, Mr. City Manager.
Mr. Mayor, councilors, good evening. We really just needed this opportunity to give you a heads up with regard to the changes that we need to propose to the existing ordinance. For one, I think it'll take a lot of the concern off the table, as it were, as this is really housekeeping oriented more than anything. And so if I could defer to the city attorney to walk us through that discussion, I'd appreciate that.
Sounds good, Mr. Nelson.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. So we will be setting an initial public hearing for the next meeting on an amendment to our DUI ordinance. It'll be essentially adding one subsection to the ordinance, and this is in order to bring it in line with state statute. When the statute changed a few years ago, we did not update our ordinance. It's essentially a catch-all provision. So we have with you're probably familiar with the per se limit of alcohol, 0.08. But that's not the only way you can be intoxicated to a degree that you're incapable of safely driving a vehicle. And this addition is basically a catch-all provision that would apply to other substances that may be in an individual's system. Again, it brings us into line with state statute. It gives us the same prosecutorial ability as they would at the DA's office. It fundamentally probably won't change much of anything. I think this will potentially apply to a very small number of cases, but it's probably best practices to keep them in line. So with that, that's kind of the rationale behind it. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Anyone? Mr. Gamero.
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks, Eric. Sorry, I'm pulling it up right now. I thought when I read it through on the first go around though, I thought the existing ordinance already referred to state statute. So I guess my question after my first read through was, what is the amendment addressing that is not currently addressed in our current ordinance?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, Councilor. So it's subsection C of the ordinance. So our ordinance, in our definition of controlled substance, in A and B tracks verbatim the state statute, but subsection C is also in state statute, which says any drug or psychoactive substance or any combination of these substances capable of impairing a person's physical or mental faculties. And so, you may have a psychoactive substance that's not covered by A or B, for instance, and in which case it could potentially inhibit our ability to prosecute that. In which case, what would happen? It would get dismissed and refiled in circuit court. However, it's the preference, I know, of our PD to file these cases through municipal court. And in fact, it's my understanding that the DA's office, because of staffing issues, won't even prosecute these. So again, it's that language that's being proposed to be added is verbatim the language that was added to the state statute that just never got picked up in the ordinance.
Thank you. Anyone else? Chuck?
This is more just a curiosity than but I think it's relevant to the ordinance. One of the questions or I guess topics I've seen kind of related to this that's kind of being discussed is particularly around substances other than alcohol, where there may be evidence that the person has it in their bloodstream. It's been recently ingested, whatever. But what I haven't seen is the level of measurability of that impairment, like, a blood alcohol level is a measurable level. Are you aware of anything, Eric, that kind of codifies that or clarifies that a little bit around this issue? I just wonder about with this issue around, any combination of, but if it's a single, where an individual's obviously impaired.
So Mayor, Councilor, so that's a good question. I think that's something that law enforcement and prosecutors nationwide are grappling with. When you have the increased legalization of marijuana, it's a drug, for instance, that is in your system for a longer period of time, and so what level connotes impairment. I think the short answer is there is where we have a per se limit with alcohol, meaning that if you have an alcohol level of 0.08 or greater, you're presumed legally to not be capable of safely driving the vehicle. With these other substances, there is no per se limit. And so really what that means is that we can establish it's in your system, but then we have to take that extra step of saying, and as evidenced by the conduct or the driving behavior or their inability to do field sobriety tests or whatever, that you're incapable of safely driving that vehicle. So there is kind of a hard and fast line, I think, on a lot of these substances. It certainly adds a level of complexity to the prosecution, but I think that's commonplace nationwide right now.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? All right. Agenda review, sir.
Mr. Mayor, just a couple things that bring to council's attention. As was mentioned, we do have a couple public hearings that we need to establish the date for, one of which council's been asking a lot about, and there's been a lot of public commentary on, and that's with regard to the camping ordinance. We're anticipating that being established for the first meeting in October, your first business meeting in October to entertain, or both public hearing as well as the first reading. We anticipate that tonight you'll also be adopting a couple of the study that council has heard reports on. And I just wanted to remind you, given some of the controversial sort of topics that those studies covered, that just because we're adopting the study and accepting the study does not mean, for example, with electrifying the transit fleet, that we've been given a direction all of a sudden to go electrify the transit fleet, because you'll recall that really wasn't what the study recommended. So just so you're aware, in case you get those kinds of questions, I would say the same thing about the impact fee stuff. Just because you're adopting the study does not mean we're pursuing an impact fee program. On the other hand, as it relates to the adoption of the North Platte River Park #2 simple master plan, we will be moving forward, hopefully, with your blessing, as it were, in terms of fulfilling that plan and pursuing applications to the state for infrastructure and so forth. We tried to incorporate feedback as it relates to what you suggested into that plan, and without a doubt, as we move forward and that stuff starts to flesh out, we'll have a lot of opportunity to converse about the development there and so on and so on. This is just a very preliminary step, as you were all aware. And beyond that, that's really all I have for agenda updates.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions on the future agenda items? All right, very good. We will adjourn for about 20 minutes and we'll come back for our regularly scheduled meeting on time.
Very good.
Got time to go over and have a beer.
Yeah, right.
And welcome to the Wednesday. How about Tuesday, September 19th? Sometimes I shouldn't read everything in front of me. Tuesday, September 19th, city council meeting. Before we begin this meeting, this evening, I'd like to remind everyone to silence your cell phones. Council meetings are also live streamed on the city's YouTube channel. I now call the September 19th, 2023 regular council meeting to order. The chair would entertain a motion to, by minute action, excuse the absence of Councilor Ingebretson.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Vice Mayor Pacheco, seconded by Councilor Pollock. Any nay votes? All voting aye?
Okay.
Please record the vote.
All councilors voting aye, the motion passes.
Thank you. Would you please join Councilor Gamroth in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to approve by minute action the minutes of the August 15th, 2023 executive session.
Second.
Moved by Councilor Pollock, seconded by Councilor Kathy. Any amendments? Any abstentions or nay votes? All voting aye?
Aye.
Please record the vote.
All councilors.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to approve by minute action the September 19th, 2023 bills and claims that was audited by City Manager Napier. Moved by Councilor Haskett, seconded by Councilor Bond. Any abstentions or nay votes? All voting aye? Please record the vote. Thank you. Now is the time we invite anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to the council to come forward. This portion of the meeting is dedicated to the public and to allow you time to voice your concerns. Therefore, council will take communications under advisement. If we do choose to respond, it may be done so at a later time. We ask that you state your name, direct all questions and comments to the mayor and only the mayor. No personal obscenities or threats will be tolerated. Council will not respond to personnel matters. These will be referred to our city manager. If council chooses to address these matters, it may be done during the introduction of measures and proposals by council. Presentations are limited to 5 minutes. No time extensions will be permitted. And please note that public hearings and ordinances each have their own comment period. So please hold your comment on those items until we reach them. However, with that said, if you did come tonight due to an advertisement and want to speak about the camping ordinance or any of that, this is when you would do that because it is actually not on our agenda. We're just setting a public hearing date. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor. My name is Ross Schreckman. I come to you tonight with some sadness. When I moved to Casper 2 years ago from Pennsylvania, I found a wonderful community, caring people, kind people, great organizations that serve the community. And that's still true. But lately, the reputation of the city has been besmirched in some respects. And we're getting a reputation, unfortunately, of feces in the streets, needles in the alleys, employees and customers being harassed, abandoned buildings, So, you know, we've got a problem here. And I know that all of you have worked hard with your goals for the next 2 years. One of those goals is, one of the tasks on those goals is to bring in more funding from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. My recommendation is don't do that. I've seen what happened in Philadelphia and other cities. I have a saying about public policy, which I've been involved in most of my life. He who pays makes the rules. And I'll give you a couple quick examples. More than a dozen states have passed laws to prevent their citizens from having mandates for experimental drugs. Wyoming legislature looked at this legislation. They decided not to do it. And the reason was that they were afraid that if they did that, then the Department of Health and Human Services would cut back on our funding for our medical care, including our hospitals. The Department of Agriculture provides with a school lunch program, and they've talked about not giving those funds to school districts that don't follow certain agendas for the federal government. The Environmental Protection Agency, the Department of Energy, has favored various types of energy over our own economy, our industry of energy. So with that said, going forward, I know that Mayor, you had mentioned that there's a working group on the homeless, and I'd be glad to participate in that. I have some experience in that area. For 30 years, I was the volunteer coordinator for my synagogue back in Philadelphia with an organization called Bethesda Project. And it's a transitional program from shelters and the dormitories. And we would serve breakfast with residents of the various dormitories. And I became friends with a number of those people. I also, in my position, I met with Mary Scullion. Sister Mary Scullion is the premier advocate for the homeless in Philadelphia. As an auditor for the state of Pennsylvania, I did the closing audits for state mental hospitals in the early 1980s. These were terrible facilities, very old, 100 years old, and not very good care. And they closed them, and they said they were going to be community organizations and group homes and various things. It didn't happen the way it was supposed to. Criminally insane were let out, and there was a lot of problems, and there still is. So I'm just letting you know that I'd be glad to help out in any way I can. And if you have any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Schriftman? All right, thank you. I would urge you to contact our city manager's office. He could probably give you information on who to get a hold of when it comes to that coalition, or even talk to Ray or Kyle. I think they're both on it, are you? And they may be able to give you the information of who to talk to see if you could be involved in something like that. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Amanda, can you put the timer up here for me? I don't have it in front of me for some reason. I don't want to have to keep turning around. I think it's rude. Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, councilors. I'm Dan Odell. I live at 1725 Maple Street, and I'm the senior minister for the United Methodist Churches in Casper. I've come here today to thank you, Mr. Mayor, for your recent comments that have garnered national attention. I'm thanking you not because I agree with you. I actually disagree with nearly all that you've been quoted on, but I'm grateful for you because your comments have cemented my resolve to be a passionate advocate for our homeless neighbors here in Casper. Second, I want to invite you to our resource fairs on the corner of 2nd and Beach Streets on the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd Fridays in October from 11:30 to 2. At our recent resource fair last Friday, the Salvation Army, the Trona County Health Department, Healthcare for the Homeless, and Central Wyoming Counseling Center, and case managers from the community made 91 contacts with our homeless population looking for help. And the Salvation Army also fed 71 people. I also would invite you to consider a change in your mindset about this issue. As someone who was raised to be a follower of the teachings of Jesus, and as someone who strives each day to live out those teachings, this is perhaps the most profound thing that I've learned. My capacity to experience the love of God is directly correlated to my capacity to love my neighbor. This morning, I spoke with Marcia. She is a woman who's staying with Mercy Services and Mercy Care at the rescue mission. She's a woman with MS, and she's on a motorized wheelchair, and she has no place to go during the day. And she wanted me to convey to you tonight that she's tired of people yelling from their cars to get a job or get off the streets, or even hearing things like homeless people suck. My point in telling you this is to illustrate that every person we see has a story and can tell you about their barriers to housing. And perhaps most importantly, they, like you and I, have a heart. They feel pain, they feel joy, they feel love, and they feel hatred. And they don't want to be bullied, they want help. They want friendship, and they want to be a part of this community, a productive part of this community. So in closing, I want to give you a free hug coupon. This is one of our 96-year-old Methodist, Selma Schneider. She and her husband used to own Oil City Printers on 2nd Street. She now lives at Park Place, and she, like me, believes that love is part of the answer to this very complicated program. So anytime you want to hug, please give me a call. We'll get together and I'll even buy you a cup of coffee first. But again, thank you for your time, and please, let's make love part of the answer.
You're welcome. Now, if I may, I'd like to respond to you. I'll take that. Thank you.
Yes.
Here's what I would say to you.
Yes.
I'm a Christian man myself. And it does take a lot of love. But 2 Thessalonians also tells us that those that don't want to work shouldn't eat. Now, with that said, I am very compassionate when it comes to our homeless situation. And I understand that people need help at certain times in their lives, and I'm all about doing it. And I think our homeless shelter is doing an amazing job. I went to their graduation ceremony and watched 33 people graduate in different phases of that program. Those are not the people I'm talking about. The people I'm talking about are the ones that don't want to conform to societal rules. They are using substance abuse where they can't think clearly, or they are so mentally ill that they will not follow the rules to even be allowed in the shelter. Those are the ones that are running around in our city that are causing problems in our alleys and with our business people and with our townspeople and some of our businesses. Our very own chairman of our county commission was accosted a week ago by a homeless guy trying to get in his car with him and his wife. Those are the people I'm talking about that we have got to find a way to deal with them. The people that truly want help, the ones you're talking about, I'm all in. I will do anything I can to help them and to help you help them. It's the other group that I'm talking about. And there are two different, very distinctive groups here. So I just want to be very clear.
Understood.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you for coming. Hi, Brad.
Hi, Mr. Mayor, Brad Hopkins, for Wyoming Rescue Mission 230 North Park Street. Thank you for your passion and all of your colleagues for your service to our fine city here. Just stopping by for a couple of minutes just to hopefully bring a little balance to some of the fevered pitch around homelessness. But as you mentioned, a man of faith, I just thought I'd read some scriptures, if that's okay.
Certainly.
Before I start. Blessed are, and these are the words recorded from Christ, Jesus Christ. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Just wanted to make a few comments with our homeless issue, making it all the way to the national news as the executive director of really the largest homeless service provider in the state. I would assure the community, and I've heard many folks, if Fox News were to come here and do a on the ground report on homelessness in Casper, they would be terribly bored. And they would say, what are you guys whining about? You know, let me show you some of the other areas that around the country. That being said, homelessness is nothing new to our city, to our region. This is why a collective of churches started our organization more than 45 years ago, really to share the love and hope as we see from Christ's promise of eternal life, but to care for all of those, which continues to this day, regardless of belief, regardless of gender identity, sexual expression, ethnicity, experience, and life. There is amazing care at our mission, but as you've heard from Pastor Dan, from around the city as well, we're so fortunate as a mission to actively partner, as of my speaking, with 60 agencies, both here locally and from around the state. There is quite a concerted effort, and one would be surprised as to who is at my mission, who is not there. And really, when I look at the amazing generosity of the community that we're even here at all, it's miraculous, the care and attention. But it's not a week goes by that we don't get a call from a concerned parent about their adult child asking for how they can get help. Our common issues that we're seeing, 70% are diagnosed with a mental health diagnosis. Addiction is a skyrocketing problem as well. We're not immune, especially if we're seeing national projections of more than 110,000 projected to die in America of drug overdoses. And I just want to assure you and the council, we've got the tools. We have the know-how here in Casper and in our state. So I'm so pleased to be a part of our collaborative. We need all the players at the table to be working together as we face massive societal headwinds. But I'm grateful as we compare to states around us for what is really a manageable problem on a comparative basis. And we're pleased to serve those in need around the clock at 168 hours each week. So happy to address any questions. I will say in my last 10 seconds, we were before council a few years ago, and Judge Huber said, you know, I would love it if we were known as a place in Casper where people could get recovery and connectedness. So we continue the vision.
I would like to ask you one question, and you are out of time, so be aware of that, please. But have you said the mission is obviously geared towards getting help. Have you guys came up with any ideas yet at all on how to deal with the ones that just don't want the help, that are causing us our biggest headaches? Have you tackled any of that yet? Do you have any ideas around that?
It's a challenge. One piece that we've initiated is an active street outreach. We just had our first one a week ago, and one of our pastors is here with me. We're partnering with them and any church. In fact, anybody on council that would like to join us on that, but just to really practically intervene and touch people. There are folks that just don't want to move forward in their life. 95% of the people we serve are on a plan moving forward with their case management. There's just 5%.
Right.
Mental health is a big factor there.
Well, I think if we could figure that part of it out, we might actually be able to make some headway. You know, one of the advantages we have here too, when it, or disadvantages for the homeless is our weather. It's, winters aren't conducive to it. So anyway, I appreciate you coming and speaking. Thank you, Brad. Is there anyone else that would, wish to speak to council this evening? Okay, very good. Let's move on and, read the consent agenda title, please.
For consideration of an ordinance amending section 10.52.030 of the Casper Municipal Code regarding driving or having control of a vehicle while under the influence of intoxicating liquor or controlled substance. An ordinance amending chapter 9.48 of the Casper Municipal Code, camping, and an ordinance amending section 17.104.170 of the Casper Municipal Code.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to by amended action establish the public hearing dates just read.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Counselor Pollock, seconded by Counselor Kathy. Any abstentions or nay votes? All voting aye.
Aye.
Please record the vote.
All councilors voting aye to the motion.
Thank you. I now declare the public hearing open for the consideration of a resolution regarding fiscal year 2024 budget amendment number 1. Mr. City Manager, do you have any exhibits?
Mayor, I do actually.
Oh, excuse me, Mr. City Attorney, I apologize.
No worries. Exhibit number 1, correspondence from Jill Johnson to J. Carter Napier dated September 12th, 2023. Exhibit number 2, Casper Star Tribune, proof of publication published on September 7th, 2023.
Thank you. Mr. City Manager, do you have a report?
I do. Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the council, as we talked recently in work session about this particular item, council had a lot of good questions about the amount of projects that were coming forward as a part of this amendment and when some of those projects were initiated and so on. Hopefully you got to see some of the answers to those questions in your most recent information packet, wherein some clarity was provided and so on. And without a doubt, we're hopeful that, we can get better in terms of getting some of those projects complete so that these amendments, particularly the first amendment of every fiscal year, is not as sizable as perhaps we've seen in recent years. Certainly, we are hopeful that as supply chain issues improve, as ordering times for rolling stock improves and so on, that will help us tremendously in making some of those amendment requests a lot smaller. Nonetheless, this particular amendment is very consistent in terms of needing to deal with rolling projects over, getting that set up so that indeed that work can continue as we overlap in fiscal years and move into a new fiscal year, which is where we find us today. Furthermore, Mr. Mayor, we do have a small portion of this amendment that's dedicated to initiatives that we've been very fortunate to receive grant funds for. And indeed, you see that captured in this amendment as well. The smallest portion of which would be new projects, if you will, new initiatives that the council is interested in. And that essentially takes up the majority of our request to move forward with this amendment.
Thanks, sir. Council will now listen to public comment. Public hearing comments are limited to 5 minutes and no duplication of speakers will be allowed. Is there anyone wishing to speak to the 2024 budget amendment number 1? All right. At this time, I would ask anyone who wishes to speak in favor to please approach. Obviously, we don't have anybody. Is there anyone who wishes to oppose this? All right, very good. There being no one to speak for or against budget amendment number 1, I now declare the public hearing closed. Please read the resolution by title only.
2024 First Amendment to the original adopted budget.
Do I have a motion on the floor?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Vice Mayor Pacheco, seconded by Councilor Gamroth. Discussion. Anyone? Very good. Any amendments? Any abstentions or nay votes? All voting aye?
Aye.
Please record the vote. Thank you. Please read the ordinance on second reading by title only.
Updating and amending chapter 5.08 of the Casper Municipal Code, including sections 5.08.010 and 5.08.240.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to approve on second reading the ordinance just read.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilor Haskins, seconded by Councilor Gamroth. Council will now listen to public comment. Public comments are limited to 5 minutes and no duplication of speakers will be allowed. Is there anyone? All right, any discussion on the dais? Any amendments? All right, any abstentions or nay votes? All voting aye?
Aye.
Please record the vote. Thank you. We will wait for her to get back. Thank you, clerk. Please read the ordinance on second reading by title only.
Amending chapter 6.04 of the Casper Municipal Code.
Chair would entertain a motion to approve on second reading the ordinance just read.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Councilor Pollock, seconded by Councilor Haskins. Council will now listen to public comment. Public comments are limited to 5 minutes and no duplication of speakers allowed. Anyone? All right, discussion among the dais. Very good. Any abstentions or nay votes? All voting aye?
Aye.
Sorry, did you want to abstain?
This is the one on. Yeah.
This is TNR.
No.
Okay, one nay vote. Everyone else voting aye? Please record the vote. Thank you. Consent resolutions. Please read the consent resolutions by title only.
For the Interstate 25 Casper Marginal Enhancements Phase 2 McKinley Street to Yellowstone Highway Project. 9A2, issuing a revocable license agreement with Mountain West Technologies Corporation for installation and maintenance of a fiber optic line. 9A3, approving and adopting the Casper Impact Fee Study. 9A4, approving and adopting the North Platte River Park Number 2 Simple Master Plan for the Casper Metropolitan Area. 9A5, approving and adopting the Casper Area Transit Electric Fleet Conversion Study for the Casper Metropolitan Area. 9A6, approving and adopting the Evansville East Side Sidewalk and Trail Study for the Casper Metropolitan Area. 9A7, authorizing a professional services agreement with Rufftellis Financial Consultants Incorporated for a water and sewer utility rate study. 9A8, authorizing an agreement with Modern Electric Company for the Metro Facility Emergency Generator Project. 9A9, authorizing the sole source purchase of outer carriers and ballistic plates from Warrior Kit Safety and Survival Gear. 9A10, authorizing change order number 2 to the agreement with Wind River Environmental Solutions LLC for the City Hall Project Safe Asbestos Abatement Project. 9A11, authorizing an underground right-of-way easement with Rocky Mountain Power as part of the Wyoming Sports Ranch construction, 15 by 33 feet. 9A12, authorizing an underground right-of-way easement with Rocky Mountain Power as part of the Wyoming Sports Ranch construction, 15 by 15 feet.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to adopt the consent agenda items just read. Moved by Councilor Gamroth, seconded by Councilor Jensen. Mr. City Manager, would you like to speak to any of these?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you, sir. Any abstentions or nay votes?
I'll abstain from 9A2, please.
9A2 for Mr. Gamroth. Anyone else? Okay, all voting aye. I'm sorry,
Is there a discussion on?
Consent.
not on consent. All voting aye?
Aye.
Okay, please record the vote.
Councilor Gamroth, abstention noted, and all others voting aye, the motion passes.
Thank you. Please read the consent minute action titles.
10A1, authorizing the reappointment of Kermit Lilly to the City of Casper Investment Advisory Committee. 10A2, approving the appointment of Shelley Zimmerman to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. And 10A3, authorizing the purchase of 120 computers in the amount of $168,000 for the State of Wyoming contract with the Computer Professionals Unlimited.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to approve the consent minute action agenda items just read.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Counselor Pollock, seconded by Counselor Gamroth. Any abstentions or nay votes?
I'll abstain from 10A3.
10A3 for Mr. Gamroth. All voting aye.
Aye.
Please record the vote.
Gamma abstention noted on, and all others voting aye, the motion passes.
Thank you. At this time, we would ask our counselors to bring forward relevant concerns or items of interest. Counselor Jensen.
Yeah, wasn't prepared to go first on that one.
Counselor Bond.
Just two things. There is a reception tomorrow at the Nicholas and a farewell reception for Nancy. Boston, thank you. Everyone's got the wrong name. Nancy Boston, who has been a major supporter of the arts in Casper for many years. She's moving to Arizona to be with her family and be closer to them. So reception at 4 o'clock tomorrow afternoon at the Nicholas. And Saturday, there's a opening reception exhibition, which is being held, I believe, at 5:30 on Saturday.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Counselor Kathy.
There was a very good turnout for the Boys and Girls Club breakfast Wednesday morning. The entire floor of the events center was filled with guests that were there participating in the breakfast. I have not heard the dollar amount that they raised, but I am sure that the Boys and Girls Club did well by the turnout. I apologize for missing the water board meeting earlier today. I was bringing my wife back from having surgery in Laramie. The chamber meeting this afternoon was canceled. It will be next Wednesday, which probably not going to make that because of it being at 4 o'clock, and that's when the pre-meeting is supposed to be, and I'm the one that's supposed to attend. So I'll probably miss that. Something that I meant to mention when we were doing the budget amendment is, what was it, all but $1.5 million of that budget amendment was rollover. And where that comes into play, and I know it was mentioned about supply chain issues and things, but right now it takes 2 years to get a garbage truck. Well, if we allocate that money today, then it will need to be rolled over for FY 25's budget, and it will need to be rolled over again into FY 26's budget, because that's when the expenditure will actually take place. And so that's where a lot of this is coming from. And that's what the city manager was talking about, is that it isn't that we necessarily are not getting all of our projects done, but some of them have extremely long lead times, particularly on our equipment, which does require us to carry that money over from year to year. So I apologize to anybody that's still listening that I didn't state that earlier, but I thought that was something that needed to be stated. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Counselor Haskins.
I didn't have any meetings the last week or so, so I don't,
Lucky.
I know, right? Next week. So I don't have a whole lot. Dan, if you'd stick around, I do have some questions for you about the October weekends thing. You're still there?
First, second, and third
I don't see
Friday at what time? 11 to 2:30.
I would like to touch base with you on that, if you don't mind. I did want to do a shout out. Thank you, Chief McFeeters and Officer Maples, Lieutenant Wheeler, and Detective Bowman for helping me this week. Our police department is super on their A game when you have concerns in the community, so I appreciate your help. That's all I got.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Counselor Pollock.
I did have meetings, so I do have a few updates for you. The first one is from Amico Reuse Agreement Joint Powers Board. That project at the Three Crowns Clubhouse restaurant remodel is near completion. Should be opening here soon. Well, should be grand opening.
Oh,
here
gotcha.
soon. Yeah, it should be officially opening here in the very near future. They've got a new brand, new menu, lots of great stuff going on there. I think the space looks really great, and you know, that facility is about 20 years old, so been refreshed, big patio. They're optimistic that that will be good for their food and beverage program, able to reduce the subsidy that it takes to run that facility. So I think that's good news. The LGBTQ advisory meeting was on Friday. We did receive applications for the vacant positions, and the committee is reviewing those now. And then I had regional water today, and and LGBTQ advisory committee will be they're on the agenda, I think October 24th, to provide an update to council. So you'll be hearing more in depth from that committee here soon. And then regional water, I think the two main things that are of note, that we accepted a bid for a well rehab project. That was the project that we applied for the ARPA funding for. So it's a relatively sizable project, like $1.3 million to rehab a number of wells. And so we did get bids on that, and we did vote to accept one of the proposals. So looks like that project the funding is now in place, and we should be able to move it ahead. And then we were working with Jill on our investment accounts and opted to move some small fraction of our Wildstar 2 money to some CDs because they have a good return right now. So take advantage of that, but not move anything too dramatically, even though Wildstar 2 returns are not fantastic at the moment, but we're just optimistic that that's a safe long-term strategy. So we discussed that a little bit with the board and with Jill, and I think that's all I have for that. I have Metro Animal tomorrow, so I'll be able to update you all on that next week.
Okay, very good. Counselor.
I thought of a couple things. Steve reminded me, I did go to the Boys and Girls Club breakfast as well, and that was a fun event. It was good to see everybody so bright and early and chipper in the morning. I also visited over at the 19th hole again. We had a going away party for some volunteers for the Trail Center, and while we were there, it was so busy. It was great. We had about 4 other big parties were happening in there, but it was fabulous and great weather, and it was nice to be in the open patio area. So beautiful out there, and go enjoy it before they close. And then also I want to make mention of the Hogadon had a tune-up day up at the mountain on Saturday, and it would look like I was not able to make it, but it was a great turnout from the pitchers, and there was a lot of cleanup that got done getting ready for the ski season. So that was good. So thank you to all the volunteers that showed up.
Thank you. Counselor Gamroth.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, Boys and Girls Club breakfast went really well. You did a fine job, Mayor, but I gotta say, felt like you were upstaged a little bit. The Wyotown mayor read her proclamation totally from memory. Super impressive.
She totally blew me away.
Very humbling because I'm so relying on my notes, but yeah, her name was Brooke McCarthy. She did an awesome job.
You did.
And again, just boom, she nailed out that proclamation without looking down once. So yeah, really good event. Had a DDA board meeting last Wednesday. I'm sure many folks saw the news that we're going to move forward with the ice rink this season, so I'm sure that was welcome news for many. I want to remind people of the hard work that goes into securing funding for this. Last year, the board had decided not to move forward with the crux of the issue is renting the chiller to keep the ice preserved, and the cost for the chiller had gone up 200% from the year prior, and so it was a fiscal decision last year. This year, it's still going to be about 50% higher than what we were paying in 2021 to rent the chiller, but thanks to some favorable sponsorship discussions, we think we can manage it without compromising in other areas. Costs about $45,000 a year to rent that chiller, and the utilities go up to $5 or $6 grand a month just because it requires so much electricity to run that. So I just want folks to be mindful of that. The few dollars that they collect to rent skates doesn't nearly cover those carrying costs. So if the ice rink is important to you, which again it is to many, I know my favorite part of the holiday season is the community Christmas tree lighting up at David Street and skating around it. It makes for a very Hallmark scene downtown. If you agree with that and if it's important to you as well, just I would ask you to please consider donating to help with those costs. And if you don't have the financial resources to do that, I totally understand, but maybe even sign up to be a volunteer to help them with their events. It's just a 3-person team there. So every event that you attend down there, the free ones, it's being managed and operated and carried out by 3 people at the DDA, and then the host of volunteers that make it all possible. So please consider reaching out. We also made the decision to separate David Street Station from the DDA and create its own board entirely focused on event planning and fundraising. So this will help bring in more resources in the way of funding opportunities, and also another board that's going to be focused on just strictly event planning at David Street Station. So keep an eye out for opportunities to serve in that regard in the future. They are having their fall festival this weekend. It's from 10 to 2 on Saturday. If you've never been, it's a really cool event. Me and my daughter make sure not to miss it every year. They have a little mini locomotive that drives around. They do horse-drawn carriage rides. It's a really cool way to begin the fall season. Did have a WAM board meeting last Friday. It was in Shoshone and I wasn't able to make it in person, but thankfully Carter, he's on the executive team, so he was able to represent us there. We went over finances, personnel related issues about recruitment and wages, pretty standard stuff. And then because I didn't get the opportunity to bring it up in our meeting, I did email the president of the board this afternoon, filling him in on some of our concerns regarding the busing of homeless individuals around the state, specifically to Casper, without any advance notice to connect them to services or any plan to get them back to their communities. I believe the city manager also testified to the Judiciary Committee yesterday. Haven't had the opportunity to check that out yet, but I imagine he did a fantastic job, as always, representing us there as well. And lastly, the Casper Roughnecks play their first game this Friday at Casper Ice Arena. Doors open at 6:30, puck drops at 7:30, and the admission is free to the public. So that's, as a reminder, that's the new, oh geez, I'm not a sports guy. Some
Semi-pro.
Semi-pro hockey. I'll go with that explanation. But it's a new team, so excited to see how they do. And yeah, first game is free and open to the public, so maybe consider checking them out this Friday evening. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Thank you. I just have one comment. It's to the couple folks that came and spoke to us about homelessness and those that are individuals that are have experienced being houseless. While I don't have a policy stance, or I can't sit and say these certain things, I'll say what I understand, the depth of the work of trying to provide and help people that are at moments of their basic, stripped of their basic dignity, those that are homeless. My hope is that while we certainly have different viewpoints, all of us, different political views, different ideologies when it comes to our faith, the point of it is that I make is our understanding of collaboration, our understanding of working together, communicating and talking. And I think if we don't bridge those gaps, we're not going to move forward. I think also having the conversation of how those collaborations happen are already starting with what we're doing within the city. I think what's happening, communications with the SIM project that a lot of you are involved in, with what we're trying to accomplish. I know, Dan, some of the things that you presented for housing, our understanding of how we do that. But beyond that, what I really want to say is that the outreach project that has been created has been a really powerful tool for this community for outreach to those individuals that are at risk, for us to be able to do that. And I wholeheartedly agree that whatever you fall on your faith journey, or wherever you fall in your spectrum, you look in the eyes and you see another brother or sister, and created in the image of God, who we treat with dignity, respect, and compassion. And that's something my parents taught me a long time ago, that I will die with that. So thank you.
Thanks, sir. I have several things. Dan, I'll just start with you since he was just talking. That is the most respectful disagreement I've ever seen in this room. And I'm serious. People have lost that art, and I appreciate you so much for being able to say, you know what, I disagree with you, but here's why, here's what I think. I just thought it was humanely respectable, and I appreciate that more than you know. We don't get to see that very often, so thank you. First, second, and third Friday from 11 to 2:30 at the church?
Yeah, Second and Beach.
Okay, I will be there at least at one of them, if not all of them. So, okay, Boys and Girls Club was really cool. I spent quite a little time gabbing with the governor, and that little Wyotown Town mayor really did show us all up, especially me. And man, she was spot on, really good. Taya Kyle was here. She is the sniper who was actually trying to help a downtrodden disabled vet that killed him. And but what a speaker she was. Very, very Christian-based woman, and in her ideology, and it was a pleasure to listen to her, and the place was packed. It was awesome. There's been some stuff on social media lately about the F Street Bridge situation, and I understand we've had some businesses down there are really suffering. Taco John's, Max's, who's been around forever. The Little Shop of Horrors hamburger place has now closed 2 extra days because they're just not making money and they can't afford. So although it's a state-run project and the city doesn't have a lot of anything we can do, but what we can do is maybe urge people to patron those businesses right now because they're really struggling. And because of that construction, it's made it very difficult on them. I'm not advocating for one business over another in town. I'm just saying, I know they're having a really tough time because of the construction areas. People can't seem to get in there. So please keep that in mind. I went to Austin this last weekend and spent 4 days, and I went to the University of Wyoming Texas football game, which was one of the best games I've ever seen if you're a Wyoming fan. We went toe to toe with number 4 in the country for 3.5 quarters until we imploded. But man, what a game.
Did Ray win?
Huh?
I was close.
Ray did not win, but we lost by 21.
Fourth quarter.
So he was only 18 points off. But with 7 minutes to go, he was winning the bet. The wheels just
had it too.
yeah, the wheels came off. Considering the regional water meeting, there's a couple things that came out of there that you should know. Number one is they paid off their final payment to the city loan. It's been many years coming. They are finally free of that. And they have 2 current positions open right now. If you go on to the city website, I believe they could find a place to apply for those. One is a lead operator, and I believe one is a regular operator. But we have 2 positions available at Regional Water currently. So if you're interested in going to work for them, please fill out an application. Both jobs are open right now. The city manager and I went to a county commission meeting today and listened to a presentation from the library foundation trying to acquire funds to build a new library, and that did not go very well for them. There just isn't a lot of money, and the county commission kept going back to the fact that the public has voted it down twice, and so they're extremely apprehensive to want to go against that. So that's what I got from it. MRG meeting tomorrow. As you know, if you follow this council at all, been lots of comments about the MRG out at the airport and the statewide airports. So we'll see how that all works out. I think that is all I have. The next meeting of the Casper City Council will be a work session to be held at 4:30 p.m. next Tuesday, September 26th, and a regular council meeting to follow on Tuesday, October 3rd at 6 p.m. A notice of an executive session to take place at this date and during this time was given. We have a matter to discuss regarding land acquisition and personnel. Therefore, the chair would entertain a motion to adjourn into executive session, and at the conclusion of that executive session to reconvene this regular meeting solely for purposes of adjournment of this regular meeting. Moved by Councillor Pollock.
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Bond. There being a majority of councillors present, a motion to adjourn into executive session has been moved and seconded. This motion requires a 2/3 majority of the council present. Are there any abstentions or nay votes? All voting aye.
Aye.
Please report the vote.
All councilors voting aye, the motion passes.
2/3 majority of the council present voted in favor of the motion. We are hereby adjourned into an executive session. Thank you all for coming this evening. We will take, we'll take a 5-minute break. Let the room clear.
Oh, okay.